Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Kala Chanji Radha Kala Chanji Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Oh. I think I need to be closer. Hi, Krishna. Good morning. My name is Manjari Gopika Devi Dasi. And today we'll be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6. We're starting a new chapter. I know, I always feel like that's exciting. Chapter 7, which is entitled, I believe it's entitled, Lord Indra Offends His Spiritual Master, Brahaspati. So, spoiler alert. So, we'll be starting chapter 7, and we'll cover verses 1 through 17, focusing on verse 14. Before we begin, I sincerely ask for your blessings that I may speak something pleasing to my spiritual master, to Srila Prabhupada, and to all the devotees. Let us together chant the invocation prayers. Narayanam namaskritya narachaiva narottamam devim sarvasvatim vyasyam tato jayamudirayet nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adwaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right, so now we will begin Canto 6, Chapter 7. Lord Indra offends his spiritual master, Brahaspati. So, yes, verses 1 through 17. We have a small group today. 1, 2. So I think everybody could read 2 verses.
Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Shukadev Goswami, O great sage, Why did the spiritual master of the demigods, Brihaspati, reject the demigods, who were his own disciples? What offense did the demigods commit against their spiritual master? Please describe to me this incident. Shukadev Goswami said, O king, once upon a time the king of heaven, Indra, being extremely proud because of his great opulence of the three worlds, transgressed the law of Vedic etiquette. Seated on his throne, he was surrounded by the Maruts, Vasus, Rudras, Adityas, Ribus, Vishvadevs, Sadyas, Ashwini Kumaras, Siddhas, Charanas, and Gandharvas, and by great saintly persons. Although surrounding him were the Vijadaras, Apsaras, Kinnaras, Patagas, birds, and Uragas, snakes, all of them were offering Indra their respects and services, and the Apsaras and Gandharvas were dancing and singing with very sweet musical instruments. Over Indra's head was a white umbrella as effulgent as the full moon, fanned by yak-tail whisks and served with all the paraphernalia of a great king. Indra was sitting with his wife, Shachi Devi, who occupied half the throne, when the great sage Brihaspati appeared in that assembly. Brihaspati, the best of the sages, was the spiritual master of Indra and the demigods, and was respected by the demigods and demons alike. Nevertheless, although Indra saw his spiritual master before him, he did not rise from his own seat or offer a seat to his spiritual master, nor did Indra offer him a respectful welcome. Indra did nothing to show him respect.
Brihaspati knew everything that would happen in the future. Seeing Indra's transgression of etiquette, he completely understood that Indra was puffed up by his material opulence. Although able to curse Indra, he did not do so. Instead, he left the assembly and in silence returned to his home. Indra, the king of heaven, could immediately understand his mistake. Realizing he had disrespected his spiritual master, he had condemned himself in the presence of all the members in the assembly.
Alas, what a regrettable deed I have committed because of my lack of intelligence, and my pride in my material opulences. I failed to show respect to my spiritual master when he entered this assembly, and thus I have insulted him. Although I am the king of the demigods who are situated in the mode of goodness, I was proud of a little opulence and polluted by false ego. Under the circumstances, who in this world would accept such riches at the risk of a falling down? Alas, I condemn my wealth and opulence.
If a person says, one who is situated on the exalted throne of a king should not stand up to show respect to another king or Brahmana, it is to be understood that he does not know the superior religious principles. Leaders who have fallen into ignorance and who mislead people by directing them to the path of destruction, as described in the previous verse, are, in effect, boarding a stone boat, and so too are those who blindly follow them. A stone boat would be unable to float and would sink in the water with its passengers. Similarly, those who mislead people go to hell, and their followers go with them.
King Indra said, therefore, with great frankness and without duplicity, I shall now bow my head at the lotus feet of Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods. Because he is in the mode of goodness, he is fully aware of all knowledge and is the best of the Brahmanas. Now I shall touch his lotus feet and offer my obeisances unto him to try to satisfy him. While Indra, the king of the demigods, thought in this way and repented in his own assembly, Brihaspati, the most powerful spiritual master, understood his mind. Thus he became invisible to Indra and left home, for Brihaspati was spiritually more powerful than King Indra.
Although Indra searched vigorously with the assistance of other demigods, he could not find Brihaspati. When Indra thought Alas, my spiritual master has become dissatisfied with me, and now I have no means of achieving good fortune. Although Indra was surrounded by demigods, he could not find peace of mind.
Very cool. It's kind of like hard to stop there. Like you want to keep going and find out what happens next. What's the cliffhanger? We'll go to text 14, our focus verse for today. Tesham kupata destrinam pata tam tamasi yadaha yesha dadyurvachastevai majantyasma plavaiva. Please chant. Tesham kupata destrinam pata tam tamasi yadaha yesha dayurvachasteve majantyasma plavaiva. Tesham kupata destranam patatam tamasi yadaha yeshadadyurvachastevai majantyasma plavaiva. Tesham kupata destrinam patatam tamasi yadaha yeshadayurvachastevai majantyashma plavaiva. Anyone else? We don't have Jaishnav here today. Where's Jaishnav? Class is not complete without Jaishnav's Sanskrit. He went back to Godhead. He's assumed his four-handed form, so good for him. All right, let's move on to synonyms. We can do these together. Tesham, of them, the misleaders. Kupata destrinam, who show the path of danger. Patatam, themselves falling. Tamasi, in darkness. He, indeed. Adaha, down. Yea, anyone who. Shradadadyu, place faith in. Vacha, the words. Te, they. Vai, indeed. Majanti, sink. Ashma, plava, boats made of stone. Eva, like. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Leaders who have fallen into ignorance and who mislead people by directing them to the path of destruction, as described in the previous verse, are, in effect, boarding a stone boat, and so too are those who blindly follow them. A stone boat would be unable to float and would sink in the water with its passengers. Similarly, those who mislead people go to hell, and their followers go with them. Purport. As stated in the Vedic literature, Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 20, Verse 17, Nirdeham adyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam sukalpam guru karana daram. We, the conditioned souls, have fallen into the ocean of nations, but the human body fortunately provides us a good opportunity to cross the boat, because the human body, a good opportunity to cross the ocean, because the human body is like a very good boat. When directed by a spiritual master acting as the captain, the boat can very easily cross the ocean. Furthermore, the boat is helped across by favorable winds, which are the instructions of Vedic knowledge. If one does not take advantage of all these facilities to cross the ocean of nations, he is certainly committing suicide. One who boards a boat made of stone is doomed. To be elevated to the stage of perfection, humanity must first give up false leaders who present boats of stone. All of human society is in such a dangerous position that to be rescued, it must abide by the standard instructions of the Vedas. The cream of these instructions appears in the form of Bhagavad Gita. One should not take shelter of any other instructions, for Bhagavad Gita gives direct instructions on how to fulfill the aim of life. Lord Shri Krishna therefore says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Give up all other processes of religion and simply surrender to me. Even if one does not accept Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his instructions are so exalted and beneficial for humanity that if one follows his instructions, one will be saved. Otherwise, one will be cheated by unauthorized meditation and gymnastic methods of yoga. Thus, one will board a boat of stone, which will sink and drown all its passengers. Unfortunately, although the American people are extremely eager to get out of materialistic chaos, they are sometimes found to patronize the makers of stone boats. That will not help them. They must take the proper boat offered by Krishna in the form of the Krishna consciousness movement. Then they will be easily saved. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, Ashmammaya plavo yesham te yata, majantam plavam anumanjanti tate raja nitya upadestru sva sabeshu kopo vijanyita. If society is guided by political diplomacy, with one nation maneuvering against another, it will certainly sink like a stone boat. Political maneuvering and diplomacy will not save human society. People must take to Krishna consciousness to understand the aim of life, to understand God, and to fulfill the human mission. Yeah, another wonderful purport. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Wow. I always feel so stupid speaking after Prabhupada's purports. I feel so dumb. It's like, okay, but I will try to elaborate, I guess, on some of the points. We can help us all critical think, I guess, together. So this is a very instructive verse. It helps us to understand the importance of knowing who to follow. This verse that, our focus verse, it specifically refers to the previous one in verse 13. Because, okay, so our verse is leaders who have fallen into ignorance and who mislead people by directing them to the path of destruction are in effect boarding a stone boat, and so too are those who blindly follow them. So this is referring to the previous verse where it is stated, if a person says, text 13, one who is situated on the exalted throne of a king should not stand up to show respect to another king or a brahmana, it is to be understood that he does not know the superior religious principles. In other words, one has to be careful not to become proud of one's external position or achievements. Pride, as we know, comes before the fall. And this is clearly demonstrated in the example of Devaraj Indra. When Indra became proud of his wealth, his worship, his abode, and his control, he failed to recognize the presence of his spiritual master Brihaspati when Brihaspati entered the assembly. Brihaspati, seeing Indra's arrogance, he silently left. He didn't even bother to curse him. He just watched, he turned around, walked out. But nonetheless, even though he didn't offer a curse, Indra lost everything due to his disrespect to someone superior to him, to a pure devotee. And this is a reminder for us, in the presence of someone greater than ourselves, we must always offer respect. We should never think that offering respect is unnecessary. This pride can be tied directly to anartas. We know what anartas are. They're the unwanted things in our heart. Ignorance, pride, lust, greed, envy. So this pride can be tied directly to anartas, as explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He identifies the 4 types of anartas, which are categorized according to their origins. 1, anartas arising from previous sins. 2, anartas arising from previous pious activities. 3 anarthas arising from imperfectly performed bhakti, and 4 anarthas arising from offenses in devotional service. That second type I find particularly fascinating. Anarthas arising from pious activities. Right? It's really easy to understand how anarthas can arise from previous sinful activities, or how anarthas could arise from offenses in devotional service. But anarthas arising from previous pious activities, how is that possible? And the answer lies in our tendency to misuse the results of our piety. Because when we receive material opulence, our inclination is what? To enjoy it. And when we enjoy in this way, we think it belongs to us, and then we think we're the cause of it, and then we only want to be with other people in the same atmosphere as us, on our same level, and then we look down on people who aren't on our material level, and we're just completely blinded. And in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that because Arjuna asks him what happens to those who start the spiritual path and they don't complete it in this lifetime. And Krishna explains, well, they can take birth in a devotee family, or what's the other thing he says? Where else can they take birth? They could be demigods, or take birth in a rich or aristocratic family. So we know that material opulence is a result of previous pious activities. And yet, it's a big source of how anarthas can arise. So material opulence is dangerous because it can divert our attention to false prestige, giving us the impression that we are the owners and masters of all that we survey. This is obviously not the case. We know that as devotees. To protect his devotees from such a misunderstanding, the Lord sometimes takes away their possessions. There's a famous verse in the 10th canto where Krishna says, Yasyaham anugranami harishe tadanam sanai. If I especially favor someone, I gradually deprive them of their wealth. But anyway, this principle can be seen in Indra's situation. As a proud person, he thought his success was defined by his wealth and external achievements. I was trying to picture this assembly room. I was trying to picture, what does the court of Devaraj, Lord Indra, look like? So then I was trying to go in my mind of like the most fabulous palaces I've ever seen, like Versailles, where it's just everywhere you turn, it's a mirror and a painting and a mural and gold. And so I was just trying to imagine what he must live in. And then he has all of these other demigods around him, and he has all these worshipers and people fanning him and people who just want to look at him and who are asking his advice and asking for help. It's easy to see how one could probably get carried away. So Indra thought his success was defined by his wealth and external achievements. However, Krishna says that he will remove those distractions to help his devotees grow spiritually. This pride that Indra exhibits can blind us to the true source of everything, which is the Lord. And there are many other instances where this blindness is illustrated and where people commit offenses against the Lord's devotees. There's the story of Amoga, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's son-in-law, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Lord Chaitanya visited Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's home, Sarvabhauma prepared a lavish feast for Lord Chaitanya's pleasure. However, Amoga, his son-in-law, seeing things externally, he criticized Lord Chaitanya. He was like, what kind of sannyasi is this? This amount of food can feed 12 people. What kind of a renunciate is this? And Sarvabhauma said to him, he quoted a verse from the Bhagavatam. He said, when a person mistreats great souls, his lifespan, opulence, reputation, religion, possessions, and good fortune are all destroyed. And this same destructive pride is at play in today's verse, which also warns us about following false leaders. These leaders are stepping into a stone boat and calling others to follow them into the stone boat. A stone boat cannot float. It will sink. And it'll drag everyone on board with it. In the 7th canto, Prahlad Maharaj warns, people who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who have therefore accepted as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects, cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home, back to Godhead, and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. Blind men following other blind men are bound to fall into a ditch. And similarly, materially attached leaders and their followers remain trapped in the cycle of fruitive labor, and they suffer the threefold miseries of material life. So this verse makes two key points. First, the folly of boarding a stone boat, and the danger of following a blind leader. Those who are attached to material enjoyment naturally choose leaders who have similar attachments. The Bhagavatam says, men who are like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses glorify those men who are never absorbed in hearing the pastimes of the Lord. In other words, those materialistic people glorify those who are better at being materialistic than they are. A big criminal, a gangster, attracts other criminals who are impressed with the level and intricacy of their crimes. And on a lesser level, a musician will attract other musicians. So this materialism leads to a culture of superficial leadership, because these leaders are interested only in their own achievements, which is, as Prabhupada notes, is often gained through political maneuvering and diplomacy. And I believe it's in the Nectar of Devotion where it's described that people in Kali Yuga mistake glowworms in the tree for the moon. In other words, they mistake those with limited materialistic ability for genuine leaders. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, although the American people are extremely eager to get out of materialistic chaos, they are sometimes found to patronize the makers of stone boats. Because these so-called leaders promise protection through diplomacy and political maneuvering. They say, I will protect you from disasters. I am the answer. But how can they offer real protection? They're just fallible soldiers. Only Krishna, the Supreme Lord, can provide true protection. And only those who inspire faith in Krishna can give real shelter. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 9, Verse 19, where Prahlad Maharaj says, My Lord Nrsimhadev, O Supreme, because of a bodily conception of life, embodied souls neglected and not cared for by you cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child. A physician in medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient, and a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. A diseased person may take medicine and feel temporary relief, but does that mean they won't die? We're all going to die at some point. So Prahlad is making the point that those who are not taking shelter of the Lord, they are bound to take shelter of these temporary things. And these so-called leaders offer temporary measures of relief. And people patronize them, not recognizing that they're the makers of stone boats. They're not real boats that will save us and carry us across the ocean of nations. Real protection only comes from the Lord and those who take shelter of him. So the example being given in today's verse is that Indra's pride caused him to think that his position was secure because he relied on the external opulence and worship. Again, if you're thinking of yourself sitting on a throne in the palace of Versailles and everybody's looking at you and fanning you and asking for your advice, you probably think you've made it and you have all the answers. So Indra is thinking, oh, just look how many loyal worshippers I have. I have all this power and control. He felt secure. This pride led him to commit offenses repeatedly. For instance, the Govardhan Lila happened because of Indra's pride and his power and control. And he, once again, in the Govardhan Lila, failed to recognize those who were superior to him. And I don't mean to laugh, because I actually, in reading the Bhagavatam over the years, I've really come to appreciate Lord Indra. Because I realized that I was like, oh my God, why is he acting like this? And this is so outrageous. And then I realized he's making me look at myself of all the ways that, it's so easy to point fingers at other people, but Indra is making it really clear that these anarthas that I have can lead to these great offenses too. But similarly, Nala Kuvera and Manigriv were so intoxicated by their wealth, they couldn't recognize when Narada Muni appeared before them. They didn't offer him proper respect, and as a result, Narada Muni didn't walk away like Brahaspati did. He cursed them. Wealth can make people so absorbed in the bodily conception of life that they become blinded. And Narada Muni explained that the best thing for a wealthy person is to become impoverished, because only someone who has experienced the pain of poverty can develop true compassion. So this is why we must learn the dangers of pride and the importance of humility. Until we free ourselves from it, we will always risk disrespecting those who are superior to us. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his songs, he discusses what real wealth is. And it's not material. In his songs, he explains that the most valuable commodity is faith. Every spiritual person, not material person, we know a material person is looking for, but every spiritual person is looking for more faith. Even those who have deep faith are eager to gain just a little more so they can fan it and allow it to grow. In the spiritual marketplace, he writes, in the marketplace of the holy name, the only true valuable thing is faith. Material vision, pride, wealth cannot purchase faith. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that if Lord Nityananda sees even a single tear in someone's eye while they chant the holy name, a tear that indicates just a little faith, he becomes inclined to bestow all the potency of the holy name on that person. Such a person receives pure love of God. So those with great faith are always looking for ways to increase the faith of others. That is the work of Guru, to inspire faith in others, especially faith in the holy name and faith into surrendering to Krishna. Surrender requires giving up all external trappings, giving up all opulence, and giving up the thinking that I'm safe and protected because I'm surrounded by friends and family and my position. Those who have even a little faith are constantly looking to those who have more faith than they do, wondering, how can I be more like them? Materialistic people look to, as Bhagavatam explained, people who are more successful materially than them and thinking, how can I be more like them? How can I get that amount of money? How can I buy property in that area? But people who have a little faith are looking to those who have more faith than them, wondering, how can I be more like them? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the example, if you want to increase your wealth, you must invest your money. Everyone knows that without investment, your money won't grow. It'll just stay where it is. Similarly, spiritual seekers must invest their faith wisely to see it increase. Just as materialists know how to invest their money for greater returns, devotees must invest their faith in those who have deep faith and who inspire others to have more. Such an investment always yields good returns. However, we must avoid placing our faith in the manufacturers of stone boats, those who promise guidance but are themselves blind. Instead, we must place our faith in devotees who follow the orders of the spiritual master. To deepen our faith, to deepen our investment, to multiply our returns, we must seek the association of genuine devotees and invest in that association through hearing from them and serving them. This association is essential because those who awaken faith in others can offer real protection. In this regard, Lord Chaitanya prays in the 4th verse of Shikshastika. Everyone knows, Nadanam najanam nan sundarim kavitam vag jagagisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhaktirahai tukitvayi. Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. A person who has proper vision, who's not intoxicated by material opulence, will see faith in others and recognize their ability to awaken it. They don't judge others by external qualifications. Instead, they seek out those who have the ability to instill faith in Krishna and Guru. Real Shraddha, real faith, means believing that simply by chanting the holy name and executing devotional service, all secondary activities are automatically fulfilled. This principle is emphasized in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And if we don't place our faith in genuine devotees and their association, we risk being misled. False leaders misdirect people by turning them away from those who have the ability to offer true shelter. This is exemplified in Indra's story. He is surrounded by his worshippers and his followers, and he relied on their admiration and his external opulence for validation and security. But what happened when he failed to properly respect his spiritual master? In just 1 second, as is stated in Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, those who mistreat lose everything. Therefore, we should be very careful not to judge others by external criteria. Instead, we should focus on how much faith someone has in Guru and Krishna. Faith is the measure of a person's spiritual progress. You won't be able to see anything external. Are you familiar with the story of Lord Chaitanya and the illiterate Brahmin? In the holy town of Srirangam in South India, there was a simple Brahmin who was deeply devoted to Krishna. Despite being illiterate, he would sit every day in the temple and read the Bhagavad Gita. That's in quotation marks. He would hold it, he would look at it, he'd flip the pages, and he would lovingly gaze at its pages. The local people would ridicule him, saying, "Why are you pretending to read the Bhagavad Gita? You can't read one word. You can't read one word on this page." Unperturbed by their mockery, the Brahmin continued his daily practice. During his travels in South India, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Srirangam, and he noticed the Brahmin sitting with the Bhagavad Gita. And he saw that his eyes were filled with tears. So Lord Chaitanya approached him. He was intrigued. He said, "Dear Brahmin, what are you doing?" And the Brahmin replied, "Oh, I'm trying to read the Bhagavad Gita, but I'm illiterate. I can't even read this letter. My spiritual master instructed me to read it daily, so I follow his order." Lord Chaitanya inquired further. He said, "If you cannot read, why are you crying?" The Brahmin explained, "Whenever I look at the Bhagavad Gita, I remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, who became the charioteer of Arjuna. And thinking about Krishna serving his devotee, I can't help but weep." And hearing this, Lord Chaitanya was overwhelmed by the Brahmin's pure devotion. He declared, "You have truly understood the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna's heart is captured by such devotion as yours." This Brahmin, who could not even read Bhagavad Gita, had more faith, had more understanding than anyone in the temple who could read it. This story illustrates the essence of devotional service. It's not about external qualifications like learning or material achievement. What Krishna values most is faith, humility, and devotion. By cultivating these qualities, we can attract the mercy of the Lord and progress on the path back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. So the floor is yours for any reflections or comments, corrections.
Thank you so much. That was so nice. I don't know. You put so much work into these classes. So amazing.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I just had a reflection on the last point you made about, our, intellectual abilities is not what makes us like a good devotee or something like that. It's all about like faith and whatnot. One time I asked Her Grace Prabhupada Priya Prabhu about, what do you do if like you feel some pride because like, oh, look at me, I'm like one of the few that finished Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita and like I know so much. And then she said, she's like, if you notice pride, that's a really good reason to be humble. I thought that was interesting.
Good.
it's like, yeah.
That's very good. Thank you. Humility is definitely something I'm trying to work on. Prabhu, Prabhu, anyone? No, Shamaru Prabhu. Oh, just to do my Prabhu.
I found it interesting when you spoke on the different types of anarthas and like what they stem from. and particularly the anarthas coming from imperfect practice of bhakti. And I remember one time I was at Krishna lunch in Gainesville, and I looked at this devotee, and I was like, you know, when I think about it, I think I have more anarthas than when I started.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, you know, there's a type of anartha that comes from imperfect practice of bhakti. Kind of like what Ajit Prabhu was saying, like we can think, oh, I'm so good at this, or oh, I know so much, or oh, I'm so senior. And so then we got a new kind of anartha.
Absolutely.
So I guess it goes to show that in our practice of bhakti, we need to always remember Trinadapi Sunichana, or else that bhakti will, or that practice that we do will simultaneously water the weeds at the same time.
Yes, thank you.
Just to add on that, I think that's why it's really important, like at no matter what stage we're at, no matter what position, how old we are, how long we've been practicing, I think we all need at least one devotee that can put us in our place. Or, you know, that can like
I'm looking at my husband.
that we are like giving them the service, like the opportunity to like, okay, tell me as it is and tell me if I'm straying away, and like I think we all need at least one devotee like that, you know.
Yeah. It's true. It's hard, but it's true.
Two of the things that were said reminded me of a devotee. You may have met Arjun Prabhu at the Bhakti Center.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So he's like kind of like uncle, godfather for me and my brother. And growing up, he's someone that like kind of expects you to be very responsive. You know, like if he communicates that you're gonna send a text back, and as like a teenager, I didn't respond to anybody. Thought I was too cool for the whole world. And he's because he could see how proud I was. He told me that every round that I chant, before I chant Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, I should chant Ranadapi Sunichena to try to like, you know, just like hammer that into my thick skull. But I was appreciating what Ajit Prabhu was saying about that. He was one of those. He was probably the first person in my life that I think didn't so much care about if I liked what he had to say to me. Just like he wouldn't just say what he thought would make me happy or make me like him, but he would say what he knew that I needed to hear to help me grow. And it took me a really long time to like be okay with that relationship. As a teenager, especially, you know, you're like, I know everything. And I think part of what made it work is he explained to me when there's someone that actually cares about you like that, because you were mentioning it's healthy to have someone like that in your life that can kind of put you in your place, is that if there is somebody in your life like that, you have to remember that what they're saying to you, they have no malice. They don't mean you ill, even though they say things that probably hurt to hear and are very hard to hear. But because they care about you, they say those things. And that, anyway, those two things, it took me some time to understand and like get it. Oh yeah, he's not saying this because he's trying to hurt me. He's saying this to help me. And then eventually I was able to kind of like come around and appreciate it. And yeah. Thank you. Wonderful class. Yeah, I was remarking nice also, you ended exactly at 8:15. It was like so well organized and very nice class.
The only thing I'm really good at is time management. I think my husband will tell you. Yeah, these classes, I always say they're all preparation and no realization. So you can go to other people for realization, but I'll at least have it timed well.
Any other?
Just yesterday, I was listening to one of my god brothers' lecture, and the theme was anarthas. I like this particular part. He said anarthas mainly come because of one's sins, coming from past lives. Then from there are different types of anarthas which come from the pious credits, and how to interact them.
Mm-hmm.
How to counteract them. So he said, sins of course are counteracted by chanting the holy names, and there are various other means by rendering devotional service automatically. Kramena eva praliyante. So in due course of time, they get alleviated. But and then he made one interesting point. I think I shared that with you yesterday. So Deenbandhu Prabhu, in one of the yatras, there were devotees taking the dip in the river Yamuna, and he asked this question to all the devotees around. So do you know the difference between taking bath in Ganges, Mother Ganga, and Yamuna? So no one knew. Does anyone know here? So he made... Sorry?
He says Achyuta Govinda Prabhu says 100 times more potent. Is that the benefit?
Yeah, definitely it's true. But Deenbandhu Prabhu, he brought out one wonderful point. He said, by taking bath in Mother Ganga, one's sinful reactions are destroyed. But by taking bath in Yamuna, not only one's sinful reactions are destroyed, but also the reactions of the pious credits are destroyed too. So this is the only moment where we are taught that punya is also bad. Pious credits are also bad, equally bad. Then third type of anartha that he spoke about was coming out of criticizing the devotees. So how to counteract those type of anarthas? He said, Lord Chaitanya says, the very mouth that we use to criticize devotees, we should glorify the devotees. Genuinely, we should try and feel when we glorify, not just, externally do that. And there is another type of anartha, I forgot, there are two more actually, one I forgot. But there is one that actually relates to me. He said, it comes out of the pride. Whenever I do certain spiritual practices, I think I'm doing it. Ahankara vimudatma. I do the morning program, I attend Bhagavatam classes. I hear this and I do this and I do that. So he said in Govardhan Leela, Krishna lifted Govardhan with his little finger, pinky finger, right? So similarly, we are not able to see. Brajvasis, they were holding their sticks and they were thinking, we are the ones actually helping Krishna lifting Govardhan. We are the ones doing, right? So similarly, with those sticks, we think, I do morning program, I do this, I do that in devotional service, right? So when Krishna sees, okay, here is this devotee, sadhaka, who has become proud, he will remove his pinky finger, just like he did that for a fraction of moment and Govardhan started dwindling. So similarly, in our lives also, we fail to see that pinky finger of Krishna behind our devotional practices. So with this understanding, we can counteract the anartha coming out of our pride.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Wonderful
Krishna.
class. Thank you so much. I was thinking about, it's interesting because we were talking about, Lord Indra and how puffed up he was because of his wealth. And wealth is different to different, varnas, And for the Brahmin, the wealth is knowledge, right? And so we can even have different wealths and that we're good at activities, like I'm really good at this. And so that's my wealth, a thing that I cherish, And so we have an opportunity to become puffed up in any different kinds of these different wealths. I might think I'm not rich, so therefore I don't have to worry about becoming puffed up. No, you have some kind of wealth. Definitely, as devotees, we have so much wealth. And so we can be also keep that in perspective that are we getting puffed up because of our knowledge or our abilities to do things, and that these things can become anarthas if we become too proud of them. But also in the same aspect, we become very thankful for Krishna for the wealth that we have, for the ability to do these things, or the knowledge that we get. And then they become a great asset, right? So instead of becoming an anartha or hurting our devotional service or hurting the people around us by our ignorance, then it become a wealth because we want to give it to others, right? The Brahmins' wealth is knowledge, so they want to give wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And a person who's very rich, the king is giving his, he only keeps taxes because he knows that there's going to be a time to give that taxes out during the hard times and stuff. So just thinking about the interesting, this interesting thought of wealth and becoming prideful of it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really interesting point. Okay.
The last type of anarthas he said was coming out of inattentive chanting.
Yeah, I've heard that
And
too.
then he said, when Srila Prabhupada, he was at 26th Avenue, he was giving this class, and it was such a simple example he gave. He said, can you all hear the sound of the car? And they said, yes. So what comes next after hearing the sound is the car itself. You can see it. And next you have an opportunity to enter into the car and sit there. So similarly, the holy name, the transcendental sound vibration, is said, we first hear, try to hear attentively, then we will be able to see the Supreme Lord and then actually enter into his pastimes and his abode.
I just had a question. So, if you have some kind of wealth or knowledge or anything, so then instead of pride, how you should be handling it? Like, you have to tolerate it, or like what you have to do? Like, theoretically we know, okay, it's provided by Krishna, but like internally, how do you have to handle, like you have to tolerate it? Or like,
Well, Rupa Goswami emphasizes yukta vairagya, right? Using what we have in Krishna's service. So if you have wealth, it doesn't mean you have to, empty your bank account and hand it all out or hand it over to the temple. I suppose you could, but they wouldn't say no. But you can use what you have to help the Krishna consciousness movement. Like for example, we have this wonderful devotee. I guess I won't say his name. You'll all know who I'm talking about. Because I don't know if we're allowed to even say people's names in classes, but in our community, and he was very materially successful, so much so that he was going to retire early, like at age 50. And he told his spiritual master an update on his life. He said, I'm going to retire, I have everything that I need, I'm set. And his spiritual master said, I haven't retired. My disciples can't retire. So instead what he did is he retired from his business, but he's working kind of another business, if you will, but it's an ISKCON business. He's setting up a farm community in South Texas. He's using all of the funds that he created and his material learning about infrastructure and vendors and contracts to create this community. So in that way, he didn't empty his bank account, but he's funneling it towards ISKCON and for a new project for the pleasure of his spiritual master and all devotees. As one thing I was thinking of. What was the other thing I was going to say? I don't remember what the other thing was I was going to say. I don't know if that's helpful. Oh, but also association. You can have a lot of knowledge and you can have a lot of wealth, and if you're struggling to recognize that it's all due to Krishna, what's emphasized here in the class is the association of devotees, because what we really want to do is to be increasing our faith. That's what we really want. You're materially set. Okay, you have a brilliant mind. Maybe you can do all the Sanskrit and tell me what it means without reading the translation. Fine. But what we're looking to increase is our faith. And you can only get that from someone who has faith. So you need to spend time with them, listen to them, and serve them. I have make it really quick. I have one of my best friends in New York City went to college. She was college roommates with this now woman who our age who is an heiress. Her family owns one of the most iconic American baseball teams. And I'm going to call my friend Tori and this woman Holly. My friend Tori is like Holly's only like real normal friend. Although Tori is extremely materially successful, like she makes 6 figures a year, but she didn't grow up in that environment of high society and rubbing elbows with celebrities. But she's been introduced to some of Holly's friends, and Holly's other best friend is, I'll call her Monique. Monique's father is a famous civil rights activist and politician in America. Like he's been parodied on Saturday Night Live for 40 years. You would know him if I said his name. But anyway, they used to hang out, and when I caught up with Tori recently, I was like, hey, how's Monique? Well, how's Holly? She's like, oh, Holly's busy. I haven't spent much time with her. I said, how's Monique? She's like, well, I haven't really spent time with her since her birthday party. I said, why? She's like, I just don't want to be with them anymore. And I was like, what? You've been friends with them for like 20 years. And she told me she went to, I don't know, was it Monique's birthday party or Monique's father's birthday party? And Tori was the only normal, like regular person there. And she only knew these 2 people, Holly and Monique. And all these other people she introduced herself to, like, hi, I'm Tori. And they're like, oh, who are you? I said, well, I'm Tori. I'm friends with Monique. And they kind of looked at her and they're like, also I was college roommates with Holly. And they're like, no, who are you? And they meant like, what family are you from? Like, what industry are you in? Like, is your dad famous too? When you may be materially successful, but if you surround yourself by other people who are materially successful and don't have the same goals as you, that's really the problem. It's not it's not what you have, if that makes sense. It's the association. Oh, yes, just Jimna Prabhu.
Just last small anecdote. One of my teachers, he said the best thing about being a Grahastha guru is that you log off your disciples call with like all your disciples, and then your wife says, hey, the dishes are still there. Something like that. So yeah, devotees in our life, they keep us humble.
Absolutely. Hare Krishna.
I was remembering a class by Srila Prabhupada, and he was talking about the definition of a miser is someone that has lots of wealth, but they don't use it properly. So in the same way, I was thinking about like how with George Harrison, I think at one point he wanted to shave up, and Prabhupada told him not to, like to keep doing what he was doing because he could share Krishna consciousness with more people that way. And then I think Yudhisthira Prabhu told me he used to work with Peter Burwash, and Peter Burwash was connected with Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada told him to put on water tilak because he was like a businessman going out and working in the world. So he didn't tell him to, just like using what you have in the service of Krishna, the same principle, Yukta Vairagya. I just wanted to add on to that,
Thank you so much. I thought of the example of George Harrison also. Prabhupada told him not to join, to keep engaging in the world the way he was. But we'll end on this one thing. I was listening to a class by my spiritual master the other day, His Holiness Radha Swami Maharaj, and he said, real wealth is the association of devotees. I think that's a good thing to end on. Srila Bhagavatam ki jai.